It's me, Salty. How you doing? Welcome into my stream. Tonight, as usual, we're going to be reading and continuing reading Across the Nightingale Floor by Leon Hearn. But first, hello everyone. I hope everyone's well, and hello VOD watchers. Yes, I'm pretty well. I had pizza tonight when I really shouldn't have. Yesterday I weighed myself and I'm like, oh, I gained 3 kilos. And now I was just like, had a bit of a lazy night and got pizza instead. Shouldn't have done that. Nat, hello. You're 15 days sober. What an achievement. Well done. He's hoping it continues for many, many more days. Yes. All of them, in fact. I'm very glad to hear that. I have stopped drinking too since the start of 2021. But for different reasons, because my stomach literally can't handle it anymore. For some reason, it has the same effect as like other people who have, let's say, lactose intolerance. Alcohol has that effect on my stomach. So yeah, can't do it anymore, which is fine. Alcohol, you don't need it. It's rubbish. Get rid of it. Yes, so I've just been drinking mostly water or occasional soft drink, but trying to cut sugar out is it's important, I think, to cut sugar out as well, because what's the saying? You shouldn't drink your calories or your carbohydrates. Anyway, aside from that, I hope you're doing well. Yeah, it's a bit of a rainy day here today. Oops, let me just get adjusted here. There we go. Check. All good. Right. I don't think there's anything new. Yesterday, we had a bit of a sneaky stream because Askar requested it. I'm just like, sure, why not? I've been meaning to stream a little bit extra anyway. So we read one chapter, chapter 6, I think it was, and we started on the next chapter. But got halfway through and I was just like, I was very sleepy and the words were starting to get a bit blurry. Yes, so the book seems to be alternating between two different characters. One character, Takeo, who is the adopted son of Lord Shigeru, and also Kaede. 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 And she is she was the ward of Lord Noguchi, and she's being sent off to seal an alliance with the Otori by marrying Lord Shigeru. That is the official sort of status, but unofficially, Lord Shigeru is betrothed to Lady Maruyama, who is the cousin of Kaede. And yes, it's all a bit political, but all you need to know is that Otori Shigeru is, I guess you could say he's the good guy, and Takeo is his ward, and basically there's a warlord called Aida, who is lord of the Tohan. The Tohan won a battle some years back against the Autori, and he's a bit of a warlord, so he's attempting to subdue basically the three countries, as they're called. The kicker is that he is the author took the time to let us know that Aida is a poor ruler. So he's your standard warlord, downtrodden peasants and everything. So yeah, there's no reason to be on his side at all. But yes, also we learnt last stream that Kada is 15, so that's fun. An arranged marriage at 15. Okay. Didn't have to go there, but sure. Okay. I think take it because Lord Shigeru is just under 30, and his ward Takeo is also around 15. And so they all met up in a town on the way to the Tohan territory. So Keide and Lord Shigeru are officially betrothed. However, as soon as Takeo and Keide saw each other, they had all these love hearts, and it was sort of love at first sight. So that's another spanner thrown in the works. And that is why they're both point of view characters, I'm guessing. So there's this whole bunch of different characters traveling together in the one party towards the Tohan capital of Inuyama. And last night we also found out that Shigeru adopted Takeo because he knew he was the son of an assassin. And Takeo is finding out all of these different things he can do. And he's being taught by a gentleman called Muto Kenji, who is a friend of Lord Shigeru and happens to be of the tribe. And the tribe in this book is basically ninjas. But they don't actually use the word ninjas, it's all the tribe. So yes, and Shigeru adopted him knowing that eventually he would be taken to Inuyama, and once he was in Inuyama, he would get Takeo to get rid of Aida. And that is where we left the last chapter, when Shigeru was revealing his plan to Takeo and asking him, please, you can leave if you want, go with Kenji, and you don't have to be part of this, but if you want to join me, I would like you to assassinate Aida. Use your abilities that you're learning. So I will start off from that paragraph in the middle of chapter 7. The scene is Shigeru and Takeo are talking secretly in the inn room. Shigeru said, I knew I would have no rest under heaven while my brother's murderers lived. I held their lord responsible for their actions. And in the meantime, circumstances had changed. Arai's falling out with Noguchi meant the Seishu were again interested in an alliance with the Otori against Aida. Everything seemed to point to one conclusion, that the time had come to assassinate him. Once I heard the words, a slow excitement began to burn within me. I remembered the moment in my village when I decided I was not going to die, but to live and seek revenge. The night in Hagi, under the winter moon, when I had known I had the ability and the will to kill Aida. I felt the stirrings of deep pride that Lord Shigeru had sought me out for this purpose. All the threads of my life seemed to lead towards it. "My life is yours," I said. "I will do whatever you want." "I am asking you to do something extremely dangerous, almost impossible. If you choose not to do it, you may leave with Kenji tomorrow. All debts between us are cancelled. No one will think the less of you." "Please don't insult me," I said, and made him laugh. I heard steps in the yard and a voice on the veranda. "Kenji is back." A few moments later he came into the room, followed by a maid bringing fresh tea. He looked over us while she poured it, and, once she had left, said, "You look like conspirators. What have you been plotting?" "Our visit to Inuyama," Shigeru replied. "I have told Takeo my intentions. He is coming with me of his own free will." Kenji's expression changed. "To his death," he muttered. "Maybe not," I said lightly. "I'm not boasting, but if anyone can get near Lord Aida, it will be me." "You're just a boy," my teacher snorted. "I've told Lord Shigeru this already. He knows all my objections to this rash plan. Now I'll tell you. Do you really think you'll be able to kill Aida? He's survived more assassination attempts than I've had girls. You are yet to kill anyone. Added to which, there's every chance that you'll be recognized either in the capital or along the way. I believe your peddler did talk to someone about you. It was no accident that Ando turned up in Hagi. He came to check out the rumor and saw you with Shigeru. It's my guess Aida already knows who and where you are. You're likely to be arrested as soon as you enter Tohan territory." "Not if he is with me, one of the Otori, coming to make a friendly alliance," the Lord said. "Anyway, I've told him that he's free to go away with you. It's by his own choice that he comes with me." I thought I detected a note of pride in his voice. I said to Kenji, "There is no question of me leaving. I must go to Inuyama. And anyway, I have scores of my own to settle." If you remember, chat, at the start of the book, Aida was the one responsible for persecuting the Hidden, which I think is another word for Christianity. And so the hidden villages in the mountains and everything. He was personally there and destroyed Takeo's village. And Takeo was the only one to survive thanks to Shigeru. "And anyway, I have scores of my own to settle." He sighed sharply. "Then I suppose I'll have to go with you." "The weather has cleared. We can move on tomorrow," Shigeru said. "There's one other thing I must tell you, Shigeru. You astonished me by keeping your affair with the Lady Maruyama hidden for so long. I heard something in the bathhouse, a joke that makes me believe it is no longer a secret. What did you hear? One man, having his back scrubbed, remarked to the girl that Lord Autori was in town with his future wife, and she replied, his current wife as well. Many laughed as if they got her meaning, and went on to speak of Lady Maruyama and Aida's desire for her. Of course, we are still in Autori country. They have nothing but admiration for you, and they like this rumour. It enhances the Autori reputation, and is like a knife in the ribs for the Tohan. All the more reason for it to be repeated until it reaches Aida's ears. I could see Shigeru's face in the lamplight. There was a curious expression on it. I thought I could read pride there as well as regret. Aida may kill me, he said, but he cannot change the fact that she prefers me over him. You are in love with death, like all your class, Kenji said, a depth of anger in his voice that I had never heard before. I have no fear of death, Shigeru replied, but it is wrong to say I am in love with it. Quite the opposite. I think I've proved how much I love life. But it is better to die than to live with shame, and that is the point I have come to now. I could hear footsteps approaching. I turned my head like a dog, and both men fell silent. There was a tap on the door, and it slid open. Sachi knelt in the entrance. Shigeru immediately rose and went to her. She whispered something and went quietly away. He turned to us and said, Lady Maruyama wishes to discuss tomorrow's travel arrangements. I will go to her room for a while. Kenji said nothing, but bowed his head slightly. Maybe our last time together, Shigeru said softly, and stepped into the passage, sliding the door closed behind him. I should have got to you first, Takeo, Kenji grumbled. Then you would never have become a lord, never been tied to Shigeru by bonds of loyalty. You would be tribe through and through. You wouldn't think twice about taking off with me now, tonight. If Lord Autori had not got to me first, I would be dead, I replied fiercely. Where was the tribe when the Tohan were murdering my people and burning my home? He saved my life then. That's why I cannot leave him. I never will. Never ask me again. Kenji's eyes went opaque. Lord Takeo, he said ironically. The maids came to spread the beds, and we did not speak again. The following morning, the roads out of Suwano were crowded. Many travellers were taking advantage of the finer weather to resume their journey. The sky was a clear, deep blue, and the sun drew moisture from the earth until it steamed. The stone bridge across the river was undamaged, but the water ran wild and high, throwing tree branches, planks of wood, dead animals, and other corpses, possibly, against the piers. I thought fleetingly of the first time I had crossed the bridge at Hagi. I saw a drowned heron floating in the water, its grey and white feathers waterlogged, all its gracefulness crumpled and broken. The sight of it chilled me. I thought it a terrible omen. The horses were rested and stepped out eagerly. If Shigeru was less eager, if he shared my forebodings, he gave no sign of it. His face was calm, his eyes bright. He seemed to glow with energy and life. It made my heart twist to look at him, made me feel his life and his future all lay in my assassin hands. I looked at my hands as they lay against Raku's pale grey neck and black mane, and wondered if they would let me down. I saw Kaede only briefly as she stepped into the palanquin outside the inn. She did not look at me. Lady Maruyama acknowledged our presence with a slight bow, but did not speak. Her face was pale, her eyes dark-ringed, but she was composed and calm. It was a slow, laborious journey. Suwano had been protected from the worst of the storm behind its mountain barriers, but as we descended into the valley, the full extent of the damage became clear. Houses and bridges had been washed away, trees uprooted, fields flooded. The village people watched us, sullen or with open anger, as we rode through the midst of their suffering, and added to it by commandeering their hay to feed our horses, their boats to carry us across the swollen rivers. We were already days overdue and had to press on at whatever the cost. It took us 3 days to reach the fief border, twice as long as expected. An escort had been sent to meet us here. One of Aida's chief retainers, Abe, with a group of 30 Tohan men, outnumbering the 20 Otori Lord Shigeru rode with. Sugita and the other Maruyama men had returned to their own domain after our meeting in Suwano. Abe and his men had been waiting a week and were impatient and irritable. They did not want to spend the time that the Festival of the Dead required in Yamagata. I'm guessing there's no travel during the Festival of the Dead. There was little love lost between the two clans. The atmosphere became tense and strained. The Tohan men were arrogant and swaggering. We Otori were made to feel that we were inferior, coming as supplicants, not equals. My blood boiled on Shigeru's behalf, but he seemed unmoved, remaining as courteous as usual, and only slightly less cheerful. I was as silent as in the days when I could not speak. I listened for snatches of conversation that would reveal, like straws, the direction of the wind. But in Tohan country, people were taciturn and close. They knew spies were everywhere, and walls had ears. Even when the Tohan men got drunk at night, they did so silently, unlike the noisy, cheerful fashion of the Otori. I had not been so close to the triple oak leaf since the day of the massacre at Mino. I kept my eyes down and my face averted, afraid I would see or be recognized by one of the men who had burned my village and murdered my family. I used my disguise as an artist, frequently taking out my brushes and inkstone. I went away from my true nature, becoming a gentle, sensitive, shy person who hardly spoke and who faded into the background. The only person I addressed was my teacher. Kenji had become as diffident and unobtrusive as I had. Occasionally, we conversed in hushed tones about calligraphy or the mainland style of painting. The Tohan men despised and discounted us. Our stay in Suwano became like the memory of a dream to me. Had the sword fight really taken place? Had Kaede and I been caught and scorched by love? I hardly saw her for the next few days. The ladies lodged in separate houses and took their meals apart. It was not hard to act, as I told myself I must, as if she did not exist, but if I heard her voice, my heart raced, and at night her image burned behind my eyes. Had I been bewitched? The first night Abe ignored me, but on the second, after the evening meal, when wine had made him belligerent, he stared at me for a long time before remarking to Shigeru, "This boy, some relative, I suppose?" "The son of a distant cousin of my mother," Shigeru replied. "He's the second oldest of a large family, all orphans now. My mother had always wanted to adopt him, and after her death I carried out her intention." "And landed yourself with a milksop," Abe laughed. "Well, sadly, maybe," Shigeru agreed, "but he has other talents that are useful. He is quick at calculating and writing, and has some skill as an artist." His tone was patient, disappointed, as though I were an unwelcome burden to him. But I knew each comment like this served only to build up my character. I sat with eyes cast down, saying nothing. Abe poured himself more wine and drank, eyeing me over the bowl's rim. His eyes were small and deep-set in a pock-marked, heavy-featured face. "Not much use in these times." "Surely we can expect peace now that our two clans are moving towards alliance," Shigeru said quietly. "There may be a new flowering of the arts." "Peace with the Otori, maybe. They'll cave in without a fight. But now the Seishu are causing trouble, stirred up by that traitor, Arai." "Arai?" Shigeru questioned. "A former vassal of Noguchi, from Kumamoto. His lands lie alongside your bride's families. He's been raising fighting men all year. He'll have to be crushed before winter." Abe drank again. An expression of malicious humour crept into his face, making the mouth curve more cruelly. "Arai killed the man who allegedly tried to violate Lady Shirakawa, then took offence when Noguchi exiled him." His head swung towards me with the drunk's second sight. "I'll bet you've never killed a man, have you, boy?" "No, Lord Abe," I replied. He laughed. I could sense the bully in him, close to the surface. I did not want to provoke him. "How about you, old man?" He turned towards Kenji, who, in his role of insignificant teacher, had been drinking wine with delight. He seemed half intoxicated, but, in fact, was far less drunk than Abe. "Although the sages teach us that the noble man may, indeed should, avenge death," he said in a high-pitched, pious voice, "I have never had cause to take such extreme action. On the other hand, the enlightened one teaches his followers to refrain from taking the life of any sentient being, which is why I partake only of vegetables." He drank with appreciation and refilled his bowl. Luckily, wine brewed from rice is included in that category. "Don't you have any warriors in Hagi that you travel with such companions?" Abe scoffed. "I am supposed to be going to my wedding," Shigeru returned mildly. "Should I be more prepared for battle?" A man should always be prepared for battle, Abe replied, especially when his bride has the reputation yours has. You're aware of it, I suppose? He shook his massive head. It would be like eating pufferfish. One bite might kill you. Doesn't it alarm you? Should it? Shigeru poured more wine and drank. Well, she's exquisite, I admit. It would be worth it. Lady Shirakawa will be no danger to me, Shigeru said, and led Abe on to speak of his exploits during Aida's campaigns in the east. I listened to his boasting and tried to discern his weaknesses. I had already decided I was going to kill him. The next day, we came to Yamagata. It had been badly hit by the storm, with many dead and a huge loss of crops. Nearly as big as Hagi, it had been the second city in the Otori fief, until it had been handed over to the Tohan. The castle had been rebuilt and given to one of Aida's vassals. But most of the townspeople still considered themselves Otori, and Lord Shigeru's presence was one more reason for unrest. Abe had hoped to be in Inuyama before the Festival of the Dead began, and was angry at being stuck in Yamagata. It was considered inauspicious to travel, except to temples and shrines, until the festival was over. There we go. Shigeru was plunged into sadness, being for the first time at the place of Takeshi's death. Every Tohan man I see, I ask myself, were you one of them? He confided in me late that night. And I imagine they ask themselves why they are still unpunished, and despise me for letting them live. I feel like cutting them all down. I had never heard him express anything other than patience. Then we would never get to Aida, I replied. Every insult the Tohan heap on us will be avenged then. Your scholarly self is becoming very wise, Takeo, he said, his voice a little lighter, wise and self-controlled. The next day, he went with Abe to the castle to be received by the local lord. He came back sadder and more disturbed than ever. The Tohan seek to avert unrest by blaming the hidden for the disasters of the storms, he told me briefly. A handful of wretched merchants and farmers were denounced and arrested. Some died under torture. 4 are suspended from the castle walls. They've been there for 3 days. They're still alive, I whispered, my skin crawling. They may last a week or more, Shigeru said. In the meantime, the crows eat their living flesh. Once I knew they were there, I could not stop hearing them. At times a quiet groaning, at other times a thin screaming, accompanied in daylight by the constant cawing and flapping of the crows. I heard it all that night and the following day, and then it was the first night of the Festival of the Dead. The Tohan imposed a curfew on their towns, but the festival followed older traditions, and the curfew was lifted until midnight. As night fell, we left the inn and joined the crowds of people going first to the temples and then to the river. All the stone lanterns that lined the approaches to the shrines were lit, and candles were set on the tombstones, the flickering lights throwing strange shadows that made bodies gaunt and faces skull-like. The throng moved steadily and silently, as though the dead themselves had emerged from the earth. It was easy to get lost in it, easy to slip away from our watchful guards. It was a warm, still night. I went with Shigeru to the riverbank, and we set lighted candles adrift in fragile little boats laden with offerings for the dead. The temple bells were tolling, and chanting and singing drifted across the slow brown water. We watched the lights float away on the current, hoping the dead would be comforted and would leave the living in peace. Except that I had no peace in my heart. I thought of my mother, my stepfather and my sisters, my long-dead father, the people of Mino. Lord Shigeru no doubt thought of his father and his brother. It seemed their ghosts would not leave us until they were avenged. All around us, people were setting their lit boats afloat, weeping and crying, and making my heart twist with useless sorrow that the world was how it was. The teaching of the hidden, such as I remembered, came into my mind, but then I remembered that all those who had taught it to me were dead. The candle flames burned for a long time, growing smaller and smaller, until they looked like fireflies, and then like sparks, and then like the phantom lights you see when you gaze too long on flames. The moon was full, with the orange tinge of late summer. I dreaded going back to the inn, to the stuffy room where I would toss and turn all night, and listen to the hidden dying against the castle wall. Bonfires had been lit along the riverbank, and now people began to dance, the haunting dance that both welcomes the dead and lets them depart, and comforts the living. Drums were beating and music playing. It lifted my spirits a little, and I got to my feet to watch. In the shadows of the willow trees, I saw Kaede. She was standing with Lady Maruyama, Sachi, and Shizuka. Shigeru stood up and strolled towards them. Lady Maruyama approached him, and they greeted each other in cool, formal language, exchanging sympathy for the dead and commenting on the journey. They turned, as was perfectly natural, to stand side by side and watch the dancing. But I felt I could hear the longing beneath their tone and see it in their stance, and I was afraid for them. I knew they could dissemble. They had done so for years, but now they were entering a desperate end game, and I feared they would throw away caution before the final move. Kaede was now alone on the bank, apart from Shizuka. I seemed to arrive at her side without volition, as though I had been picked up by spirits and put down next to her. I managed to greet her, politely but diffidently, thinking that if Abe spotted me, he would simply think I was suffering from calf love for Shigeru's betrothed. I said something about the heat, but Kaede was trembling as though she were cold. We stood in silence for a few moments. Then she asked in a low voice, "Who are you mourning, Lord Takeo?" "My mother, my father." After a pause, I went on. "There are so many dead." "My mother is dying," she said. "I hoped I would see her again, but we have been delayed, so delayed on this journey. I fear I will be too late. I was 7 years old when I was sent as a hostage. I have not seen my mother or my sisters for over half my life." "And your father?" He is also a stranger to me. Will he be at your... To my surprise, my throat dried up, and I found I could not speak the word. My marriage, she said bitterly. No, he will not be there. Her eyes had been fixed on the light-filled river. Now she looked past me at the dancers, at the crowd watching them. They love each other, she said, as though speaking to herself. That's why she hates me. I knew I should not be there. I should not be talking to her, but I could not make myself move away. I tried to maintain my gentle, diffident, well-behaved character. Marriages are made for reasons of duty and alliance. That does not mean they have to be unhappy. Lord Ottori is a good man. I'm tired of hearing that. I know he is a good man. I'm only saying he will never love me. I knew her eyes were on my face. But I know, she went on, that love is not for our class. I was the one who was trembling now. I raised my head and my eyes met hers. So why do I feel it? She whispered. I did not dare say anything. The words I wanted to say swelled up huge in my mouth. I could taste their sweetness and their power. Again, I thought I would die if I did not possess her. The drums pounded. The bonfires blazed. Shizuka spoke out of the darkness. It's growing late, Lady Shirokawa. I'm coming, Keide said. Good night, Lord Takeo. I allowed myself one thing, to speak her name, as she had spoken mine. Lady Keide. In the moment before she turned away, I saw her face come alight, brighter than the flames, brighter than the moon on the water. End of chapter 7. Okay, chapter 8. Still following Takeo's point of view. Let me just have a quick flick through. It's a big old chapter. Maybe. We'll see how we go. Okay, chapter 8. We followed the women slowly back to the town, and then went to our separate lodging houses. Somewhere on the way the Tohan guards caught up with us, and we had their escort to the inn door. They stayed outside, and one of our own Ottori men kept watch in the passageway. Tomorrow we will ride to Terayama, Shigeru said as we prepared for bed. I must visit Takeshi's grave and pay my respects to the abbot, who was an old friend of my father's. I have some gifts for him from Hagi. We had brought with us many gifts. The pack horses had been laden with them, along with our own baggage, clothes for the wedding, food for the journey. I did not think anything more of the wooden box that we would carry to Terayama, or what it might contain. I was restless with other longings, other concerns. The room was as stuffy as I'd feared. I could not sleep. I heard the temple bells toll at midnight, and then all sounds faded away under the curfew. apart from the pitiful groans of the dying from the castle walls. In the end, I got up. I had no real plan in my head. I was just driven into action by sleeplessness. Both Kenji and Shigeru were asleep, and I could tell that the guard outside was dozing. I took the watertight box in which Kenji kept capsules of poison and tied it inside my undergarment. I dressed in dark travelling clothes and took the short sword, thin garrots, a pair of grapples, and a rope from their hiding place within the wooden chests. Each of these movements took a long time, as I had to execute them in complete silence. But time is different for the tribe, slowing down or speeding up as we will it to. I was in no hurry, and I knew the two men in the room would not wake. The guard stirred as I stepped past him. I went to the privy to relieve myself, and sent my second self back past him into the room. I waited in the shadows until he dozed again, then went invisible, scaled the roof from the inner courtyard, and dropped down into the street. I could hear the Tohan guards at the gate of the inn, and I knew there would be patrols in the streets. With one part of my mind I was aware that what I was doing was dangerous to the point of madness, but I could not help myself. Partly I wanted to test the skills Kenji had taught me before we got to Inuyama, but mostly I just wanted to silence the groans from the castle so that I could go to sleep. I worked my way through the narrow streets, zigzagging towards the castle. A few houses still had lights behind the shutters, but most were already in darkness. I caught snatches of conversation as I went past. A man comforting a weeping woman, a child babbling as if in fever, a lullaby, a drunken argument. I came out onto the main road that led straight to the moat and the bridge. A canal ran alongside it, stocked against siege with carp. Mostly they slept, their scales shining faintly in the moonlight. Every now and then one would wake with a sudden flip and splash. I wondered if they dreamed. I went from doorway to doorway, ears alert all the time for the tread of feet, the clink of steel. I was not particularly worried about the patrols. I knew I would hear them long before they heard me, and above that, I had the skills of invisibility and the second self. By the time I reached the end of the street and saw the waters of the moat under the moonlight, I had stopped thinking much at all, beyond a satisfaction deep within me that I was Kikuta and doing what I was born to do. Only the tribe know this feeling. On the town side of the moat there was a clump of willow trees, their heavy summer foliage falling right to the water. For defensive purposes they should have been cleared. Maybe some resident of the castle, the lord's wife or mother, loved their beauty. Under the moonlight their branches looked frozen. There was no wind at all. I slipped between them, crouched down, and looked at the castle for a long time. It was bigger than the castles at either Suwano or Hagi, but the construction was similar. I could see the faint outline of the baskets against the white walls of the keep behind the second south gate. I had to swim the moat, scale the stone wall, get over the first gate and across the south bailey, climb the second gate and the keep, and climb down to the baskets from above. I heard footsteps and shrank into the earth. A troop of guards was approaching the bridge. Another patrol came from the castle, and they exchanged a few words. Any problems? Just the usual curfew breakers. Terrible stink. It'll be worse tomorrow. Hotter. One group went into the town, the other walked over the bridge and up the steps to the gate. I heard the shout that challenged them and their reply. The gate creaked as it was unbarred and opened. I heard it slam shut and the footsteps faded away. From my position under the willows I could smell the stagnant waters of the moat, and beneath that another stench of human corruption, of living bodies rotting slowly. At the water's edge were flowering grasses and a few late irises. Yes. Hello, Zero Hunter. I'm well, thank you very much. Welcome on in. Frogs croaked and crickets shrilled. The warm air of the night caressed my face. Two swans, unbelievably white, drifted into the path of the moon. I filled my lungs with air and slipped into the water, swimming close to the bottom, aiming slightly downstream, so that I surfaced under the shadow of the bridge. The huge stones of the moat wall gave natural footholds. My main concern here was being seen against the pale stone. I could not maintain invisibility for more than a couple of minutes at a time. Time that had gone so slowly before now speeded up. I moved fast, going up the wall like a monkey. At the first gate I heard voices, the guards coming back from their circular patrol. I flattened myself against a drain pipe, went invisible, and used the sound of their steps to mask the grapple as I threw it up over the massive overhang of the wall. I swung myself up and, staying on the tiled roof, ran around to the South Bailey. The baskets with the dying men in them were almost directly over my head. One was calling over and over for water, one moaned wordlessly, and one was repeating the name of the secret god in rapid monotone that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. The fourth was completely silent. The smell of blood, piss, and shit was terrible. I tried to close my nostrils to it, and my ears to the sounds. I looked at my hands in the moonlight. I had to cross above the gatehouse. I could hear the guards within it, making tea and chatting. As the kettle clinked on the iron chain, I used the grapples to climb the keep to the parapet that the baskets were slung from. They were suspended by ropes about 40 feet above the ground, each one just large enough to hold a man forced down on his knees, head bent forward, arms tied behind his back. The ropes seemed strong enough to bear my weight, but when I tested one from the parapet, the basket lurched, and the man within cried out sharply in fear. It seemed to shatter the night. I froze. He sobbed for a few minutes, then whispered again, "Water, water." There was no answering sound apart from a dog barking far in the distance. The moon was close to the mountains, about to disappear behind them. The town lay sleeping, calm. When the moon had set, I checked the hold of the grapple on the parapet, took out the poison capsules, and held them in my mouth. Then I climbed down the wall, using my own rope and feeling for each foothold on the stone. At the first basket I took off my headband, still wet from the river, and could just reach through the weave to hold it to the man's face. I heard him suck and say something incoherent. "I can't save you," I whispered, "but I have poison. It will give you a quick death." He pressed his face to the mesh and opened his mouth for it. The next man could not hear me, but I could reach the carotid artery where his head was slumped against the side of the basket, so I silenced his groans with no pain to him. I then had to climb again to the parapet to reposition my rope, for I could not reach the other baskets. My arms were aching, and I was all too aware of the flagstones of the yard below. When I reached the third man, the one who had been praying, he was alert, watching me with dark eyes. I murmured one of the prayers of the hidden and held out the poison capsule. He said, "It is forbidden." "Let any sin be on me," I whispered. "You are innocent. You will be forgiven." As I pushed the capsule into his mouth, with his tongue he traced the sign of the hidden against my palm. I heard him pray, and then he went silent forever. I could feel no pulse at the throat of the fourth, and thought he was already dead, but just to be sure, I used the garrote, tightening it around his neck and holding it while I counted the minutes away under my breath. I heard the first cock crow. As I climbed back to the parapet, the silence of the night was profound. I had stilled the groans and the screams. I thought the contrasting quiet was sure to wake the guards. I could hear my own pulse, beat crashing like a drum. I went back the way I had come, not using the grapple, but dropping from the walls to the ground, moving even faster than before. Another cock crowed, and a third answered. The town would soon be waking. Sweat was pouring from me, and the waters of the moat felt icy. My breath barely held for the swim back, and I surfaced well short of the willow trees, startling the swans. I breathed and dived again. "Hello, Keith. How you doing? How you doing, friendo?" I came up on the bank and headed for the willows, meaning to sit there for a few moments to get my breath back. The sky was lightening. I was exhausted. I could feel my concentration and focus slipping. I could hardly believe what I had done. To my horror, I heard someone already there. It was not a soldier, but some outcast, I thought, a leather worker perhaps, judging by the smell of the tannery that clung to him. Before I could recover my strength enough to go invisible, he saw me, and in that flash of a look, I realized he knew what I had done. Now I shall have to kill again, I thought, sickened that this time it would not be release, but murder. I could smell the blood and death on my own hands. I decided to let him live, left my second self beneath the tree, and in an instant was on the other side of the street. I listened for a moment and heard the man speak to my image before it faded. "Sir," he said hesitantly, "forgive me. I've been listening to my brother suffer for 3 days. Thank you. May the secret one be with you and bless you." Then my second self vanished, and he cried out in shock and amazement, "An angel!" Asker. Hello, Petal, how are you? you're late again. Only by an hour. You missed all the action. I could hear his rough breathing, almost sobbing, as I ran from doorway to doorway. It's an hour book. It is an hour book. I thought you were here at the start. To be honest, I should now enjoy. Okay. Takeo. They've arrived in a town, and the Lord has had 3 farmers who were members of the Hidden, 4 actually, strung up in cages on the castle walls. And Takeo, after listening to a couple of nights of them groaning, decided to do something about it. So Takeo, deciding to test his skill that he's learnt from Kenji, employed all his tribe arts, went up there, and he gave 2 of them poison, and the third one he's just come back down again. But he's been spotted by a random person, and that's what you just heard. The peasant said he's been listening to his brother suffer for 3 days, and he thinks he's an angel now. Means you have a good excuse to watch VODs. Yeah. Hello, kitty. How you doing? Yes, sir. I could hear his rough breathing, almost sobbing, as I ran from doorway to doorway. I hoped the patrols did not catch up with him, hoped he would not speak of what he had seen, trusted that he was one of the Hidden, who take their secrets to the grave. The wall around the inn was low enough to leap up. I went back to the privy and the cistern, where I spat out the remaining capsules and washed my face and hands as if I had just risen. The guard was half awake when I passed him.
Thank you for the 9 long months of subscribing Acid TXC, Acid Rave.
Acid.
Possum goes, ah!
The possum goes, ah. Hello, Acid. Hello, friends. Hello, Ari.
You are my most favorite creation.
Fire!
That was loud. I apologize. Oh my goodness. I very much apologize. What I'm going to do right now is turn that the F down. Welcome in. That was not supposed to be that loud. Subscribed. Where are we? Sound. Why is it so loud? Oh, resubscribed. Oh, that's full volume. That's why. There is a difference between subscribed and resubscribed. Welcome in. Who'd I miss? Solipsist 1. Welcome in. Yeah. And Ari. And Zelda. Hello, Zelda. Welcome in. I'm just reading. Just missed all of the action. Yeah. Takeo got to use his ninja skills, and he went up on a bit of a mercy killing to end the lives of some poor, unfortunate farmers who have been strung up on the castle wall. And he's just arrived, exhausted, back where they're staying. So welcome in, and yeah, get cozy. How was your stream, Acid? What I'm going to do is just double check. Twitch channel resubscribed. Yep. Okay, so that was resubscribed. And that volume was way too high. I'll turn it down to that. And I'll turn that one to match. There we go. Okay, very good. A bit weary. Understandable. Well, yeah, you get comfy, cozy. Yes. I never know what to do with raids. Welcome everyone in. Say hi. Just like, what now? Do I start reading? Do I chat for a bit? I don't know. Do you like my setup? I've added a couple of new little things. Got a little shark in the corner. Got a little book. And I got like NB heart in the corner. So yeah, different things. Just added some stuff to try out. Yeah. Okay, so now that everyone's awake, deets. Oh, that's right. Have good luck. Yeah. The guard was half awake when I passed him. He mumbled, "Is it day already?" "An hour away," I replied. "You look pale, Lord Takeo. Have you been unwell?" "A touch of the gripes, that's all." "This damn Tohan food," he muttered, and we both laughed. "Will you have some tea?" he asked. "I'll wake the maids." "Later. I'll try and sleep for a while." I slid the door open and stepped into the room. The darkness was just giving way to the grey. I could tell by his breathing that Kenji was awake. "Where have you been?" he whispered. "In the privy. I didn't feel well." "Since midnight?" he said, incredulous. I was pulling off my wet clothes and hiding the weapons under the mattress at the same time. "Not that long. You were asleep." He reached out and felt my undergarment. "This is soaking. Have you been in the river?" "I told you I didn't feel well. Maybe I couldn't get to the privy in time." Kenji thwacked me hard on the shoulder, and I heard Shigeru wake. "What is it?" he whispered. "Takeo's been out all night." I was worried about him. "I couldn't sleep," I said. "I just went out for a while. I've done it before, in Hagi and Suano." "I know you have," Kenji said. "But that was Otori country. It's a lot more dangerous here." "Well, I'm back now." I slipped under the quilt and pulled it over my head, and almost immediately fell into a sleep as deep and dreamless as death. When I woke, it was to the sound of the crows. I had only slept for about 3 hours, but I felt rested and peaceful. I did not think about the previous night. Indeed, I had no clear memory of it, as though I had acted in a trance. It was one of those rare days of late summer when the sky is a clear light blue and the air soft and warm with no stickiness. A maid came into the room with a tray of food and tea, and, after bowing to the floor and pouring the tea, said quietly, "Lord Otori is waiting for you in the stables. He asks you join him as soon as possible, and your teacher wishes you to bring drawing materials." I nodded, my mouth full. She said, "I will dry your clothes for you." "Get them later," I told her, not wanting her to find the weapons, and when she left, I jumped up, got dressed, and hid the grapples and the garrote in the false bottom of the travelling chest, where Kenji had packed them. I took up the pouch with my brushes and the lacquer box that contained the ink stone and wrapped them in a carrying cloth. I put my sword in my belt, thought myself into being Takeo, the studious artist, and went out to the stable yard. As I passed the kitchen, I heard one of the maids whisper, "They all died in the night. People are saying an angel of death came." I walked on, my eyes lowered, adjusting my gait so that I seemed a little clumsy. The ladies were already on horseback. Shigeru stood in conversation with Abe, who I realized was to accompany us. A young Tohan man stood beside them, holding 2 horses. A groom held Shigeru's Kyu and my Raku. That's the name of their horses. Come along, Abe exclaimed when he saw me. "We can't wait all day while you laze in bed." "Apologize to Lord Abe," Shigeru said with a sigh. "I am very sorry. There is no excuse at all," I babbled, bowing low to Abe and to the ladies, trying not to look at Kaede. I was studying late. Then I turned to Kenji and said deferentially, "I have brought the drawing materials, sir." "Yes, good," he replied. "You will see some fine works at Terayama, and may even copy them, if we have time." Shigeru and Abe mounted, and the groom brought Raku to me. My horse was pleased to see me. He dropped his nose to my shoulder and nuzzled me. I let the movement push me off balance, so that I stumbled slightly. I went to Raku's right side and pretended to find mounting somewhat of a problem. "Let's hope his drawing skills are greater than his horsemanship," Abe said derisively. Unfortunately, they are nothing out of the ordinary. I did not think Kenji's annoyance with me was feigned. Kenji's a little pissed off at him. I made no reply to either of them, just contented myself with studying Abe's thick neck as he rode in front of me, imagining how it would feel to tighten the garrote around it, or slide a knife into his solid flesh. These dark thoughts occupied me until we were over the bridge and out of town. Stay mad, Kenji. Then the beauty of the day began to work its magic on me. The land was healing itself after the ravages of the storm. Morning glory flowers had opened, brilliant blue, even where the vines were torn down in the mud. Kingfishers flashed across the river, and egrets and herons stood in the shallows. A dozen different dragonflies hovered about us, and orange-brown and yellow butterflies flew up from around the horses' feet. On the flat land of the river plain, we rode between bright green rice fields, the plants flattened by the storm, but already pushing themselves upright again. Everywhere people were hard at work. Even they seemed cheerful despite the storm's destruction all around them. They reminded me of the people of my village, their indomitable spirit in the face of disaster, their unshakable belief that no matter what might have befallen them, life was basically good and the world benign. I wondered how many more years of Tohan rule would it take to gouge that belief from their hearts. The paddy fields gave way to terraced vegetable gardens, and then, as the path became steeper, to bamboo groves, closing around us with their dim, silver-green light. The bamboo, in its turn, gave way to pines and cedars, the thick needles underfoot muffling the horse's tread. Around us stretched the impenetrable forest. Occasionally, we passed pilgrims on the path, making the arduous journey to the holy mountain. We rode in single file, so conversation was difficult. I knew Kenji was longing to question me about the previous night, but I did not want to talk about it, or even to think about it. After nearly 3 hours, we came to the small cluster of buildings around the outer gate of the temple. There was a lodging house here for visitors. The horses were taken away to be fed and watered, and we ate the midday meal, simple vegetable dishes prepared by the monks. "I am a little tired," Lady Maruyama said when we had finished eating. "Lord Abe, will you stay here with Lady Shirakawa and myself while we rest for a while?" He could not refuse, though he seemed reluctant to let Shigeru out of his sight. Shigeru gave the wooden box to me, asking me to carry it up the hill, and I also took my own pack of brushes and ink. The young Tohan man came with us, scowling a little, as though he distrusted the whole excursion, but it must have seemed harmless enough, even to the suspicious. Shigeru could hardly pass by so close to Terayama without visiting his brother's grave, especially a year after his death and at the time of the Festival of the Dead. We began to climb the steep stone steps. The temple was built on the side of the mountain, next to a shrine of great antiquity. The trees in the sacred grove must have been 400 or 500 years old, their huge trunks rising up into the canopy, their gnarled roots clinging to the mossy ground like forest spirits. In the distance, I could hear monks chanting and the boom of gongs and bells, and beneath these sounds, the voice of the forest, the min-mins, the splash of the waterfall, the wind in the cedars, birds calling. My high spirits at the beauty of the day gave way to another, deeper feeling, a sense of awe and expectancy, as if some great and wonderful secret were about to be revealed to me. I love forest. You like forest? That's good. I like forests too. We came, finally, to the second gate, which led into another cluster of buildings where pilgrims and other visitors stayed. Here we were asked to wait and given tea to drink. After a few moments, 2 priests approached us. One was an old man, rather short and frail with age, but with bright eyes and an expression of great serenity. The other was much younger, stern-faced, and muscular. I'm just going to make a quick note. I just realized, even during the reading and my involvement in the story, my brain is still thinking about other stuff. Like, I just want to concentrate on the story, but nope, brain's like, you need to put a hard limiter on that audio coming from Mix It Up. And now my brain is satisfied. Okay, so. Thank you, Forrest. Like at least one. Yes, brain satisfied. Okay, so they're meeting the 2 priests. You are very welcome here, Lord Otori, the old man said, making the Tohan man's face darken even more. It was with great sorrow that we buried Lord Takeshi. You have come, of course, to visit the grave. Stay here with Muto Kenji, Shigeru said to the soldier. And he and I followed the old priest to the graveyard, where the tombstones stood in rows beneath the huge trees. Someone was burning wood, and the smoke drifted beneath the trunks, making blue rays out of the sunlight. The three of us knelt in silence. After a few moments, the younger priest came with candles and incense and passed them to Shigeru, who placed them before the headstone. The sweet fragrance floated around us. The lamps burned steadily, since there was no wind, but their flames could hardly be seen in the brightness of the sun. Swedish Advent? Oh, advert, right. Couldn't it? Oh, of course, it's, an hour's up, so pre-rolls are back on. Good, yes. Right. Shigeru also took 2 objects from his sleeve, a black stone like the ones from the seashore around Hagi, and a straw horse such as a child might play with, and placed these on the grave. I remembered the tears he had shed the first night I had met him. Now I understood his grief, but neither of us wept. Adbucks, AdSense. After a while, the priest rose, touching Shigeru on the shoulder, and we followed him to the main building of this remote country temple. It was made of wood, cypress, and cedar, which had faded over time to silver grey. It did not look large, but its central hall was perfectly proportioned, giving a sense of space and tranquillity, leading the gaze inward to where the golden statue of the Enlightened One seemed to hover among the candle flames as if in paradise. Hardwood, yeah. Brass. We loosened our sandals and stepped up into the hall. Again, the young monk brought incense, and we placed it at the golden feet of the statue. Forest. Kneeling to one side of us, he began to chant one of the sutras for the dead. It was dim inside, and my eyes were dazzled by the candles, but I could hear the breathing of others within the temple, beyond the altar, and as my vision adjusted to the darkness, I could see the shapes of the monks sitting in silent meditation. I realized the hall was much bigger than I had first thought, and there were many monks here, possibly hundreds. That's good karma. I see what you did there. Even though I was raised among the hidden, my mother took me to the shrines and temples of our district, and I knew a little of the teachings of the Enlightened One. I thought now, as I had often thought before, that people, when they pray, look and sound... I thought now, as I had often thought before, that people, when they pray, look and sound the same. The peace of this place pierced my soul. What was I doing here, a killer, my heart bent on revenge? When the ceremony was over, we went back to join Kenji, who seemed to be deep in a one-sided discussion with the Tohan man about art and religion. "We have a gift for the Lord Abbot," Shigeru said, picking up the box, which I had left with Kenji. A twinkle appeared in the priest's eye. "I will take you to him." "And the young men would like to see the paintings," Kenji said. "Makoto will show them. Follow me, please, Lord Otori." The Tohan man looked taken aback as Shigeru disappeared behind the altar with the old priest. He made as if to follow them, but Makoto seemed to block his path, without touching or threatening him. "This way, young man." With a deliberate tread, he somehow herded the three of us out of the temple and along the boardwalk to a smaller hall. "The great painter, Sesshu, lived in this temple for 10 years, he told us. He designed the gardens and painted landscapes, animals, and birds. These wooden screens are his work." As the author told us in the beginning of the book, the only real Japanese person in this book is Sesshu, the painter. Everyone else is fictional. Even the land itself is fictional. "This is what it is to be an artist," Kenji said in his querulous teacher's voice. "Yes, master," I replied. I did not have to pretend to be humble. I was genuinely awed by the work before our eyes. The black horse, the white cranes seemed to have been caught and frozen in an instant of time by the consummate skill of the artist. You felt that at any moment the spell would be broken. The horse would stamp and rear, the cranes would see us and launch themselves into the sky. The painter had achieved what we would all like to do: capture time and make it stand still. The screen closest to the door seemed to be bare. I peered at it, thinking the colours must have faded. Makoto said, "There were birds on it, but the legend goes that they were so lifelike they flew away." "You see how much you have to learn," Kenji told me. I thought he was rather overdoing it, but the Tohan man gave me a scornful glance, and, after a cursory look at the paintings, went outside and sat down under a tree. I took out the inkstone, and Makoto brought me some water. I prepared the ink and unfolded a roll of paper. I wanted to trace the master's hand and see if he could transfer, across the chasm of the years, what he had seen into my brush. Outside, the afternoon heat increased, shimmering, intensified by the crickets' shrilling. The trees cast great pools of inky shade. Inside the hall it was cooler, dim. Time slowed. I heard the Tohan man's breathing, even as he fell asleep. "The gardens are also Sesshu's work," Makoto said. And he and Kenji sat themselves down on the matting, their backs towards the paintings and me, looking out onto the rocks and trees. In the distance, a waterfall murmured, and I could hear 2 wood doves cooing. Cuckoo. From time to time, Kenji made a comment or asked a question about the garden, and Makoto replied. Their conversation grew more desultory, until they almost seemed to be dozing. left alone with my brush and paper, and the incomparable paintings, I felt the same focus and concentration steal over me that I'd felt the previous night, taking me into the same half-trance-like state. It saddened me a little that the skills of the tribe should be so similar to the skills of art. A strong desire seized me to stay in this place for 10 years like the great Seshu, and draw and paint every day until my paintings came to life and flew away. I made copies of the horse and the cranes, copies that did not satisfy me at all, and then I painted the little bird from my mountain, as I had seen it flying off at my approach, with a flash of white in its wings. I was absorbed by the work. Far away, from far away, I could hear From far away, I could hear Shigeru's voice, speaking to the old priest. I was not really listening. I assumed he was seeking some spiritual counsel from the old man, a private matter. But the words dropped into my hearing, and it slowly dawned on me that their talk was of something quite different. Burdensome new taxes, curtailment of freedom, Aida's desire to destroy the temples, several thousand monks in remote monasteries, all trained as warriors and desiring to overthrow the Tohan and restore the lands to the Otori. I grinned ruefully to myself. My concept of the temple as a place of peace, a sanctuary from war, was somewhat misplaced. The priests and the monks were as belligerent as we were, as bent on revenge. I did one more copy of the horse, and felt happier with it. I had caught something of its fiery power. I felt that Seshu's spirit had indeed touched me across time, and maybe had reminded me that when illusions are shattered by truth, talent is set free. When illusions are shattered by truth, talent is set free. Interesting. Then I heard another sound from far below that set my heart racing. Keide's voice. Was it Keide? Yeah. The women and Abe were climbing the steps to the second gate. I called quietly to Kenji. The others are coming. Lost. How are you, Petal? How are you doing? Makoto got swiftly to his feet and padded silently away. A few moments later, the old priest and Lord Shigeru stepped into the hall, where I was putting the finishing strokes to the copy of the horse. Ah, Seshu spoke to you, the old priest said, smiling. Why have you got seagulls coming into your windows? You need to get some fly screens or something, Forrest. I know you probably don't have them over there, but they definitely keep the birds out. Oh, the sound of them. Okay, I thought you actually had seagulls come flying into your windows. I get crows and magpies. Magpies are all right. And butcherbirds. I gave the picture to Shigeru. He was sitting, looking at it, when the ladies and Abe joined us. The Tohan man woke and tried to pretend he had not been asleep, The talk was all of paintings and gardens. Lady Maruyama continued to pay special attention to Abe, asking his opinion and flattering him until even he became interested in the subject. Kaede looked at the sketch of the bird. "May I have this?" she asked. "If it pleases you, Lady Shirakawa," I replied. "I'm afraid it is very poor." "It does please me," she said in a low voice. "It makes me think of freedom." The ink had dried rapidly in the heat. I rolled the paper and gave it to her, my fingers grazing hers for a moment. It was the first time we had touched. Neither of us said any more. The heat seemed more intense, the crickets more insistent. Sip exactly. A wave of fatigue swept over me. I was dizzy with lack of sleep and emotion. My fingers had lost their assurance and trembled as I packed away the painting things. "Let us walk in the garden," Shigeru said, and took the ladies outside. I felt the old priest's gaze on me. "Come back to us," he said, "when all this is over. There will always be a place for you here." I thought of all the turmoil and changes the temple had seen, the battles that raged around it. It seemed so tranquil. The trees stood as they had for hundreds of years. The enlightened one sat among the candles with his serene smile. Yet, even in this place of peace, men were planning war. I could never withdraw into painting and planning gardens until Aida was dead. Will it ever be over?" I replied. "Everything that has a beginning has an ending," he said. I bowed to the ground before him, and he placed his palms together in a blessing. Makoto walked out into the garden with me. He was looking at me quizzically. "How much do you hear?" he said quietly. I looked around. The Tohan men were with Shigeru at the top of the steps. "Can you hear what they are saying?" Oh, that was Takeo. "Can you hear what they are saying?" He measured the space with his eye. "Only if they shouted." "I hear every word. I can hear them in the eating house below. I can tell you how many people are gathered there." It struck me then that it sounded like a multitude. Makoto gave a short laugh, amazement mixed with appreciation. "Like a dog?" "Yes, like a dog," I replied. "Useful to your masters." His words stayed with me. I was useful to my masters, to Lord Shigeru, to Kenji, to the tribe. I had been born with dark talents I did not ask for, yet I could not resist honing and testing them, and they had brought me to the place I was now. Without them, I would surely be dead. With them, I was drawn every day further into this world of lies, secrecy, and revenge. I wondered how much of this Makoto would understand, and wished I could share my thoughts with him. I felt an instinctive liking for him, more than liking, trust. But the shadows were lengthening. It was nearly the hour of the rooster. We had to leave to get back to Yamagata before nightfall. There was no time to talk. When we descended the steps, there was indeed a huge crowd of people gathered outside the lodging house. "Are they here for the festival?" I said to Makoto. "Partly," he said, and then, in an aside, so no one else could hear him, "but mainly because they have heard Lord Otori is here. They haven't forgotten the way things were before Yegahara, nor have we here." "Farewell," he said as I mounted Raku. "We'll meet again." On the mountain path, on the road, it was the same. Many people were out, and they all seemed to want to take a look with their own eyes at Lord Shigeru. There was something eerie about it, the silent people dropping to the ground as we rode past, then getting to their feet to stare after us, their faces sombre, their eyes burning. The Tohan men were furious, but there was nothing they could do. They rode some way ahead of me, but I could hear their whispered conversation as clearly as if they poured the words into my ears. "What did Shigeru do at the temple?" Abe asked. "Prayed, spoke to the priest. We were shown the works by Sesshu. The boy did some painting." "I don't care what the boy did. Was Shigeru alone with the priest?" "Only for a few minutes," the younger man lied. Abe's horse plunged forward. He must have jerked on the bridle in anger. "He's not plotting anything," the young man said airily. "It's all just what it seems. He's on his way to be married. I don't see why you're so worried. The three of them are harmless. Fools. Cowards even, but harmless." "You're the fool if you think that," Abe growled. "Shigeru is a lot more dangerous than he seems. He's no coward for a start. He has patience. And no one else in the three countries has this effect on the people." They rode in silence for a while, then Abe muttered, "Just one sign of treachery, and we have him." The words floated back to me through the perfect summer evening. By the time we reached the river, it was dusk, a blue twilight lit by fireflies among the rushes. On the bank, the bonfires were already blazing for the second night of the festival. The previous night had been grief-filled and subdued. Tonight, the atmosphere was wilder, with an undercurrent of ferment and violence. The streets were crowded, the throng thickest along the edge of the moat. People were standing, staring at the first gate of the castle. As we rode past, we could see the 4 heads displayed above the gate. The baskets had already been removed from the walls. "No worries, Kitty, have a good look. Hope you feel better." "They died quickly," Shigeru said to me. "They were lucky." I did not reply. I was watching Lady Maruyama. She took one quick look at the heads and then turned away, her face pale but composed. I wondered what she was thinking, if she was praying. The crowd rumbled and surged like a sorrowful beast at the slaughterhouse, alarmed by the stench of blood and death. "Don't linger," Kenji said. I'm going to listen to a little gossip here and there. I'll meet you back at the inn. Stay indoors." He called to one of the grooms, slid from his horse, gave the reins to the man, and disappeared into the crowd. As we turned into the straight street I had run down the night before, a contingent of Tohan men rode towards us with drawn swords. Lord Abe, called one of them, we are to clear the streets. The town is in turmoil. Get your guests inside and put guards on the gate. What set this off? Abe demanded. The criminals all died in the night. Some man claims an angel came and delivered them. Lord Otori's presence is not helping the situation, Abe said bitterly as he urged us towards the inn. We'll ride on tomorrow. The festival is not over, Shigeru remarked. Travel on the third day will only bring bad luck. That can't be helped. The alternative could be worse. He had drawn his sword and now it whistled through the air as he slashed at the crowd. Get down, he yelled. Alarmed by the noise, Raku plunged forward, and I found myself riding knee to knee with Kaede. The horses swung their heads towards each other, taking courage from each other's presence. They trotted the length of the street in perfect stride. She said, looking forward in a voice so quiet that no one but I could hear it above the turmoil around us. I wish we could be alone together. There are so many things I want to know about you. I don't even know who you really are. Why do you pretend to be less than you are? Why do you hide your deafness? I would have gladly ridden alongside her like that forever, but the street was too short, and I was afraid to answer her. I pushed my horse forward, as if indifferent to her, but my heart was pounding at her words. It was all I wanted, to be alone with her, to reveal my hidden self, to let go of all the secrets and deceptions, to lie with her, skin against skin. Would it ever be possible? Only if Aida died. When we came to the inn, I went to oversee the care of the horses. The Otori men who had stayed behind greeted me with relief. They had been anxious for our safety. The town's alight, one said. One false move and they'll be fighting on the streets. What have you heard? I asked. Those hidden the bastards were torturing. Someone got to them and killed them. Unbelievable. Then some man figures he saw an angel. They know Lord Otori is here. Another added, they still consider themselves Otori. I reckon they've had enough of the Tohan. We could take this town if we had 100 men, the first muttered. Don't say these things, even to yourselves, even to me, I warned them. We don't have 100 men. We are at the mercy of the Tohan. We are supposed to be the instruments of an alliance. We must be seen to be such. Lord Shigeru's life depends on it. They went on grumbling while they unsaddled the horses and fed them. I could feel the fire starting to burn in them, the desire to wipe out old insults and settle old scores. If any one of you draws a sword against the Tohan, his life is forfeit to me, I said angrily. They were not deeply impressed. They might know more about me than Abe and his men, but still, to them I was just young Takeo, a bit studious, fond of painting, not bad with the sword stick now, but always too gentle, too soft. The idea that I would actually kill one of them made them grin. I feared their recklessness. If fighting broke out, I had no doubt that the Tohan would seize the chance to charge Shigeru with treachery. Nothing must happen now that would prevent us getting unsuspected to Inuyama. By the time I left the stables, my head was aching fiercely. I felt as if it were weeks since I'd slept. I went to the bathhouse. The girl who had brought me tea that morning and had said she would dry my clothes was there. She scrubbed my back and massaged my temples, and would certainly have done more for me if I had not been so tired and my mind so full of Kaede. She left me soaking in the hot water, but as she withdrew, she whispered, "The work was well done." I had been dozing off, but her words made me snap awake. "What work?" I asked, but she was already gone. God damn it, ninjas are everywhere. Uneasy, I got out of the tub and returned to the room. The headache still a dull pain across my forehead. Kenji was back. I could hear him and Shigeru speaking in low voices. They broke off when I entered the room, both staring at me. I could see from their faces that they knew. Kenji said, "How?" I listened. The inn was quiet, the Tohan still out on the streets. I whispered, "2 with poison, 1 with the garrote, 1 with my hands." He shook his head. "It's hard to believe. Within the castle walls, alone?" I said, "I can't remember much about it. I thought you would be angry with me." "I am angry," he replied. "More than angry. Furious. Of all the idiotic things to do, we should be burying you tonight by all rights." I braced myself for one of his blows. Instead, he embraced me. "I must be getting fond of you," he said. "I don't want to lose you." "I would not have thought it possible," Shigeru said. It seemed he could not help smiling. "Our plan may succeed after all." "People in the street are saying it must be Shintaro," Kenji remarked, "though no one knows who paid him or why." "Shintaro is dead," I said. "Well, not many people know that. Anyway, the general opinion is that this assassin is some sort of heavenly spirit." "A man saw me, the brother of one of the dead. He saw my second self, and when it faded he thought it was an angel." "As far as I can find out, he has no idea of your identity. It was dark. He did not see you clearly. He truly thought it was an angel." "But why did you do it, Takeo?" Shigeru asked. "Why take such a risk now?" Again, I could hardly remember. "I don't know. I couldn't sleep." "It's that softness he has," Kenji said. "It drives him to act from compassion, even when he kills." "There's a girl here," I said. "She knows something. She took my wet clothes this morning, and just now she said—" "She's one of us," Kenji interrupted me. And as soon as he said it, I realized I'd known that she was from the tribe. Of course, the tribe suspected at once. They know how Shintaro died. They know you are here with Lord Shigeru. No one can believe you did it without being detected, but they also know there is no one else who could have done it. "Can it be kept a secret, though?" Shigeru asked. "No one's going to give Takeo away to the Tohan, if that's what you mean. And they don't seem to suspect anything." "Your acting's improving," he told me. "Even I believed you were no more than a well-meaning bumbler today." Shigeru smiled again. Kenji went on, his voice unnaturally casual. "The only thing is, Shigeru, I know your plans. I know Takeo has agreed to serve you in their execution. But after this episode, I don't believe the tribe will allow Takeo to remain with you much longer. They are now certain to claim him." Another week is all we need, Shigeru whispered. I felt the darkness rise like ink in my veins. I raised my eyes and looked Shigeru full in the face, something I still rarely dared to do. We smiled at each other, never closer than when we were agreed on assassination. From the streets outside came sporadic shouts, cries, the pad of running men, the tramp of horses, the crackling of fires, rising to wailing and screaming. The Tohan were clearing the streets, imposing the curfew. After a while, the noise abated, and the quiet of the summer evening returned. The moon had risen, drenching the town in light. I heard horses come into the inn-yard, and Abe's voice. A few moments later there was a soft tap on the door, and maids came in with trays of food. One of them was the girl who had spoken to me earlier. She stayed to serve us after the others had left, saying quietly to Kenji, "Lord Abe has returned, sir. There will be extra guards outside the rooms tonight. Lord Otori's men are to be replaced by Tohan." "They won't like that," I said, recalling the men's unrest. "It seems provocative," Shigeru murmured. "Are we under some suspicion?" "Lord Abe is angry and alarmed by the level of violence in the town," the girl replied. "He says it is to protect you." "Would you ask Lord Abe to be good enough to wait on me?" The girl bowed and left. We ate, mostly in silence. Towards the end of the meal, Shigeru began to speak of Sesshu and his paintings. He took out the scroll of the horse and unrolled it. "It's quite pleasing," he said. "A faithful copy, yet something of yourself in it. You could become quite an artist." He did not go on, but I was thinking the same thought. In a different world, in a different life, in a country not governed by war. "The garden is very beautiful," Kenji observed. "Although it is small, to my mind it is more exquisite than the larger examples of Sesshu's work." "I agree," Shigeru said. "Of course, the setting at Terayama is incomparable." I could hear Abe's heavy tread approaching. As the door slid open, I was saying humbly, "Can you explain the placement of the rocks to me, sir?" "Lord Abe," Shigeru said, "please come in." He called to the girl, "Bring fresh tea and wine." Abe bowed somewhat perfunctorily and settled himself on the cushions. "I will not stay long. I have not yet eaten, and we must be on the road at first light." "We were speaking of Sesshu," Shigeru said. The wine was brought, and he poured a cup for Abe. "A great artist," Abe agreed, drinking deeply. "I regret that in these troubled times the artist is less important than the warrior." He threw a scornful look at me that convinced me my disguise was still safe. "The town is quiet now, but the situation is still grave. I feel my men will offer you greater protection." "The warrior is indispensable," Shigeru said, "which is why I prefer to have my own men around me." In the silence that followed, I saw clearly the difference between them. Abe was no more than a glorified baron. Shigeru was heir to an ancient clan. Despite his reluctance, Abe had to defer to him. He pushed his lower lip out. "If that is Lord Otori's wish," he conceded finally. "It is?" Shigeru smiled slightly and poured more wine. After Abe had left, the Lord said to Keo, "Watch with the guards tonight. Impress on them that if there are any disturbances, I won't hesitate to hand them over to Abe for punishment. I fear a premature uprising. We are so close now to our aim." It was an aim that I clung to single-mindedly. I gave no further thought to Kenji's statement that the tribe would claim me. I concentrated solely on Aida Sadamu, in his lair in Inuyama. I would get to him across the Nightingale Floor, and I would kill him. Even the thought of Kaede only served to intensify my resolve. I didn't need to be an Ichiro to work out that if Aida died before Kaede's marriage, she would be set free to marry me. End of chapter 8. Yes, Asuka. He said the thing. I would get to him across the Nightingale Floor. End of chapter 8. He said the thing. Oh, Asuka, thank you for being so enthusiastic. That was a stretch. Free stretch. You really enjoying this one? I'm glad. I enjoyed it. I know it's not. It's a little bit more magical than like Shogun, for example. But yeah, that's fine. I have the Deveri series in the cupboard. It's like full on druid magic and stuff. Not druid magic. Like old English, sort of Welsh, sort of. Can I gift you a book to read? Maybe. As long as it's not like super serious or anything like that. But I'll give it a go. Can read on stream or to read like by myself? Because I can't read just any old book on stream. The books I read on stream are ones I have to be interested in, and ones that aren't in the public eye, I guess. But other than that, I will definitely consider whatever you have to send to me. Just send me a DM. Yes, anyway. Okay, so I will place a hard limit on the mixed up audio. How do we do that? We see what the noise is on is it threshold in compressor? And I'll just put a noise gate with the same threshold. Can I copy that? I can copy that. Can I just paste it straight on? I can paste it straight on. I'm doing the things. Send your DM. You can suss if it's a good choice or not for stream. Okay. I don't know if putting a compressor straight onto the OBS audio mixers will work. Hopefully. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. I don't know. Like all this audio stuff. I just B is a witch when it comes to audio stuff. I'm just like, I don't know. I know there's a volume. And I know the different inputs and outputs, but that's about it. Okay. It's not like I don't want to learn, it's just that it is difficult to learn with a brain like this. I have to be intensely interested in something to learn something effectively. Okay, so we're gonna raid. Who's my shout out for the day? Someone who I've seen, hopefully. Ari Strimman. We could raid Ari. I mean, look, I'm going to be honest, chat. Pretty much everyone here is just going to go to Ari anyway. So we might as well. That's why I wanted to shout out somebody, so we can shout them out and go raid Ari. True. Yeah, so that was my original thought behind the random shout-outs. I'm going to shout out somebody who streams during my daytime and who is just I don't know. She's a comfy vibe. You may have heard of her before. She's where I got in Ari's BTTV. There's like the shake cat emote. This is where I got it from. Shout out to Rin Vixen, who is an American stuck in Australia. No, she's an American.
Glory to you and your house.
That is Rin Vixen. She's a wholesome streamer, mostly. And just someone great to have on while you're doing stuff during the day. She's very pretty, yeah. Yeah. She's a whole package. So you just go and check her out, because goodness knows, she deserves some bit of love and attention. There you go. All right. I hope the stream's been okay today. I've been recording this stream locally. This is the first time that I've done that, because usually I just download it afterwards from Twitch. This is my first local recording, so I hope that the performance has been okay. And thank you everyone for being here. Thank you, Acid, for raiding me. That was so lovely. And sorry about the unfortunate loud resub thing. I've adjusted the volume on the resub audio, and I've also put a condenser on it. Condenser? Is that the right word? Pardon me, compressor. I put a compressor on it. So hopefully if I've forgotten to adjust a volume, the compressor will hopefully catch it. Alright. Raid. Here are the raid commands. Just give you a second to copy them. If you are lurking, that's fine. Just give your mouse a jiggle so you join the raid. Yeah. /raid Ariella. Thank you very much. Oh my goodness, 15 viewers. What? Thank you. And please join me for the raid, and you can escape afterwards. Flee into the countryside if you want. Here's the music. I will see you tomorrow, 22 hours from now. Runs naked in the sunset. I join you. Yay. Pixie. Hello, lovely. Asker. 9 p.m. Asker. So when you joined, an hour before that is when I'm starting tomorrow. Alrighty. I will see you tomorrow for more reading, and we will see Time Blind. Oh, I didn't realize that. I'm sorry, Asker. It's time for an alarm. Okay. Oh, I have to get Acid to help me make a Discord. Alrighty. Bye, everyone.